This is an update for July 11, 2022, day 138 of the war, end of the date update. So as a heads up, it's super quiet on the front lines. So we're going to discuss a little bit more sort of general and strategic news and just general like military situation. So what's going on there right now military-wise? Ukrainian army continues to hit Russian ammunition depots and fuel depots. So last night they hit pretty big ammunition depot in Nova Kakhovka. This is here. This is very critical point in this whole Kherson bridgehead that was destroyed. Then there was another one that destroyed here in the rear in Luhansk and Donetsk region. And the Russian sources, for example, cite that just in one sort of instance, there were at least 20 dead and 40 wounded from the rocket strike. So so far it continues, and it creates a lot of sort of pain for Russian side. They still don't have credible solution to it, even though it seems that decentralizing the storage is extremely obvious solution. Nevertheless, it's still not being practiced. Also, the Russian side also described how these attacks are conducted, and there is actually there is small peculiarity in it. So first, Ukrainian side shoots low precision rockets from Hurricane, which is essentially equivalent of HIMARS, except it's Soviet made, and the rockets are let's say made to saturate the territory as opposed to actually hit with precision. So they just fall around on the territory at some territory and essentially their reliance again on quantity versus quality. So what this does is when Ukrainian army shoots these hurricanes, then Russian anti-air sort of units, they try to intercept those rockets and shoot them down, and that's actually being done by both sides quite successfully because they're not terribly fast, and so and they're relatively big, so it's possible to intercept them. So what happens is that Russian forces try to intercept them, shoot rockets, kind of like run out of their like not ammunition, but they're out of the sort of loaded rounds of the anti-air rockets, and then it was this, and then Ukrainian side shoots the second round with actually HIMARS rockets. So and then because Russian side is reloading and preparing sort of to for the next wave of attack, but apparently it's not enough time, obviously, and so then this HIMARS rocket hits the Russian targets sort of like without pretty much any ability to intercept them. So that's what also this kind of like this strategy helps to actually increase the efficiency of the strikes as well, because it's guided, right? So well, I guess I would say it's very precise. It's probably a better way to say this HIMARS rockets, and then plus the strategy how they're being applied, so that this gives very good cumulative effect as a whole. So that was a little bit about the military. In addition, what we are observing is that Russian troops are being withdrawn from this, call it Lysychansk or North Donbass area. This is very speculative, but it's very likely that Russian command will decide to sort of launch next major attack not in the North Donbass area. Again, we could be wrong, could be very speculative, but based on what we're seeing, and also knowing the area, which is, as we discussed, is somewhat kind of like built up semi-urban area here, all of like huge area. So it's going to be very hard to sort of to move through it, and it will lead to a lot of casualties, which Russian army cannot afford right now, because as we discussed, Russian army numerically in terms of number of soldiers is actually smaller than Ukrainian, and at this time probably like say 75%, 80% size-wise of the Ukrainian army, not the equipment. We just want to make it clear. Equipment, heavy weapons-wise, obviously Russian army outnumbers Ukrainian, but in terms of number of soldiers, there is clear advantage on the Ukrainian side. Not to mention that Ukrainian government officially stated that they conscripted 700,000 people. So the size of Ukrainian army formally is 700,000 person. And then on top of that, there is National Guard, which is almost another 100,000. And then also Border Guard, which is another 60. So the whole number is close to 850,000. And then Ukrainian government continues conscription effort and tries to get, as we discussed before, the goal is probably to hit 1 million soldiers overall in the army. So that's sort of kind of like a. So going back to this, the most probable area of attack is it's actually this area near Vugledar is more likely area because it's all very flat, no, like essentially very few villages, no large towns, and it kind of like opens up sort of the path to kind of like encircle this built up area over here and here as well, where Ukrainian side has strong defenses that were not sort of penetrated or destroyed by Russian army so far. So the Russian side might be forced to go back to this southern pincer concept, or it's possible that they try to sort of take advantage here, even though we think that this is very unlikely because the area is also like there are more forests and so on, so it's probably harder terrain to sort of to fight. And here it will be very clear advantage on the Russian side because the air superiority is still on Russian side, even though it's diminished significantly at this point. But still, if they really would like to do concentrated effort of artillery, rocket, and air, and then also armor, so this would be the area sort of where to attack essentially. And who knows, maybe even the whole Zaporizhia, like the whole section of the Zaporizhia front line. This is obviously our sort of to extend some kind of speculation where it's going to go. So we'll see. Maybe it's totally possible that they will just decide to hit back again here. And this was just a sort of deception maneuver by the Russian command. Not clear at this point. In other sort of more political news, Russian president signed a decree that allows Ukrainian citizens to become Russian citizens, essentially just saying, hey, I would like to become a Russian citizen. Please accept me, into Russian citizenship, and that's it. So this is not only concerns this captured territories. This concerns the whole of Ukraine. So all you need to say, hey, fill the form, probably some very simple, documentation to prove your ID and so on, and you can almost automatically you can become a Russian citizen. So then in the related news to Russia, there is unexpected and sort of very strange sort of meeting of the Russian Parliament that's scheduled for July 15th. It wasn't scheduled originally, so they. There's obviously something urgent, something very important that they need to consider. And as we discussed, all of these decisions about the war and peace and all of these major decisions, they're not being taken by Russian president himself. It's always legitimized through the parliament. And as we mentioned before, Russian parliament has two chambers, lower and upper. Similar to US. I think it in a way it's kind of was sort of modeled based on the US system. So many speculate again, as we're going back to speculation, that that the parliament may pass legislation that essentially starts sort of conscription, mass mobilization, essentially. Because at this point, it's very clear, as we discussed, Russian troops simply outnumbered, like soldiers-wise, and then now Ukraine has some pretty credible heavy weapons from the West that create significant sort of damage, and so at this point, ability to continue attacks the way it used to be done before is essentially gone. So Russia needs to change the strategy, not to make, as we discussed, they need to figure out what to do with those ammunition depots and fuel depots. That's sort of lower level task, but in general, Russia needs to, to switch to new strategy in Ukraine, simply because they don't have enough troops, as we discussed before. So now let's actually switch to more sort of international. There is ongoing blockage of the Kaliningrad region by Lithuania, and actually Lithuania added even more restrictions to the passage of goods to Kaliningrad. So at this point, the governor of Kaliningrad is the only option for them. He's saying to use the sort of sea transportation, but as we discussed, that will be much more expensive. So, for example, because inside of Russia, if you have a car and you need to repair it, the cost to repair and cost of the spare parts went by 3 times, right? And the reason for that is because of the sanctions. It's hard to supply inside of the country. So basically, the parts are being smuggled, but because it's not sort of straightforward, it's not sort of low-cost solutions. It all goes through 10 hands, and everybody wants to have their part of the profit. So you ended up with parts that are 3 times their normal price. So something similar will be happening with this sea transportation to Kaliningrad region, and it's essentially, in our opinion, in the long run, it's not viable. So it remains to be seen how that problem is going to resolve. Now let's move a little bit to inside of situation inside of Ukraine, or I guess Ukraine and the US, going to the representative Victoria Spartz, who started in a way kind of, well, I don't know if it's little scandal, but scandal in Ukraine. So that situation sort of kind of grows. Now another representative got engaged into that, Marcy Kaptur from Ohio. I think it's a neighboring state to Indiana, and Marcy Kaptur is a Democrat. So basically, she responded to Victoria Spartz, saying that she's by doing this attack, by having all of this request to remove Yermak and accusations of and accusing him of essentially being Russian spy, that this is that Victoria is helping Russia essentially. And then obviously Victoria was not sort of quiet. She responded back, explaining that by actually being silent about the problems is actually helping Russia. So there is this growing exchange, and then Victoria Spartz gave interview to Ukrainian media channel, and the media channel is essentially this is the largest, the most prominent media outlet. It's called Ukrainian Pravda, or Ukrainian Truth, which sounds kind of a little bit dystopian, but nevertheless, that's what they decided to call that media outlet, and it sort of kind of serves the role of like New York Times in the U.S. essentially in Ukraine. So she gave interview to that media outlet, where she essentially reaffirmed everything she was saying, and unfortunately she was very clear, stating that she cannot provide all of the information that she has at her disposal, that it's secret and so on, and it will harm sort of Ukrainian security situation. But the essence of her message was that she came to Ukraine to sort of talked to the people on the ground, went through all of the Ukraine from west to east, and what she heard from the people on the ground is that there are problems with distribution of the weapons that Ukraine gets from the west, and the essence of the problem is that they stay sort of somewhere, let's say, in the middle of the country or at the ammunition depots, and they're not being channeled or funneled to the frontline units, and that the frontline units don't have enough. At the same time, there is a plenty at this storage depots essentially. So that's kind of like the problem, sort of say, that she's sort of going after, and the many people that she spoke to point to Yermak, who is, again, reminder, he's the head of Ukrainian president administration, that many people that she spoke to point to him as being sort of bottleneck, and as we understand, not sort of sending the weapons to the front line is definitely, not helping Ukrainian army in defending, and so therefore there is very logical conclusion among many people who she spoke to that he's a Russian spy, and there is also, we discussed this, he has a prior background with the Wagner Gate and other sort of his positions and stances. So there is, and the people who he works, as we discussed, this Yanukovych people, that the person, and there's more Yanukovych people than that person. So essentially, this all kind of creates a very clear picture in her mind that he's working for Russia. So again, remains to be seen where this whole scandal goes. It's still sort of like in process, and we'll keep you updated on the situation about that. Now let's actually quickly go through the front line. It won't be sort of long. It just we always start from the very north and then go in a clockwise fashion. So the intensity of the artillery exchange and just generally commando actions along this border actually decreased somewhat. We're not saying it's quiet, but it definitely decreased. It was pretty intense past, like, let's say 4 or 5 days. So situation, remains to be seen what's going on there. Now let's move to Kharkiv front line, section of the front line. Things here quiet, sort of completely. Some exchange of artillery fire, but really nothing major, nothing new. Just some really minor skirmishes at this point. Now let's jump to Izyum bridgehead. There was a relatively small scale Russian attack towards this Dolina Krasnopilya, these two villages, which we have seen probably this 30-50 times. It's like a broken record. Again, this is something relatively small scale, so in a way this is apparently kind of attempt by the Russian command to paint picture that they still pursuing this goal, that they're still putting pressure, that essentially that all of these units are largely still there. So again, because in a way they wanna keep impression that regrouping is not like really changing anything major, that this is something relatively small, just resupplying the units, and potentially it is that way, but something tells us that they probably rethinking the whole approach right now. Now let's move to the North Donbass section of the front line. Here everything is actually quiet, and that's where we saw that the troops are being withdrawn to the east from this area, and that's what kind of makes us saying that the next major attack is not going to be happening here, but somewhere else. Totally possible that Russian command will change, or they will decide that they want to pursue it here, but that's our sort of little speculation in this area. Now let's jump south. Here as well, everything is quiet. Nothing really going on here. Straight east of Bakhmut, everything's stable. Just small skirmishes. Pretty much that's it. Now let's jump to situation west of Donetsk. Here, everything's quiet with their small-scale attack against Maryinka, similar to what we've seen near Dolina and Krasnopila on Izyum bridgehead. So in other words, this is not any kind of major attack, but just kind of paint a picture, create impression that something is going on. By the way, it's actually very interesting how Russian sort of propaganda machine is working. And by the way, Ukrainian one is working the same way. So because everything is quiet, there is no progress by Russian troops. What they start doing, they actually recycle captured villages as if they were captured again by the Russian army. So specifically, they were naming this village Volodymyrivka, and there is village here Tripilya that we don't see because it's too small in scale of the map. But basically, they were saying, Russian troops captured these two villages, which they captured probably for already months and a half, or probably almost 2 months at this point. So and the idea is, obviously, people don't follow it, and they just we just name some village, nobody remembers, everybody will forget in 10 days about this village, or 5 days, or 2 days. And so we can just kind of recycle that there is some kind of progress inside for internal audience, obviously, right? So that we're making some kind of progress there, right? So we're advancing, and our army is still winning. The same is actually being done by Ukrainian propaganda, exactly the same stuff. And we'll talk about the area where it's being done once we get there. So now let's quickly jump to Zaporizhia front line. So again, situation is the same, no changes. Positional defenses by both sides, exchange of artillery fire. So now let's close with the Kherson bridgehead. Things are exactly the same here, and this is actually where now Ukrainian propaganda does the same stuff. So there is a village Ivanivka in this area that was captured by Ukrainian army. We don't remember at this point, but it was at least a month or so. So now it was sort of liberated second time, basically, right? So, and then there is always no shortage of some kind of news that Ukrainian army is attacking in almost on outskirts of Kherson, which is obviously not true, at least right now. But as you can see, propaganda machines they sort of made from the same from the same kind of cookie cutter, and they totally not working to actually provide useful and truthful information. As a note, we would like to mention that Russian side is reporting heavy rocket fire and heavy artillery barrage in this whole area, specifically Snihorivka, and then around this Novokakhovka area as well. And obviously Kherson has always been prime sort of target for Ukrainian forces attack here. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.